Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 12th video here on this four-part series. I just woke up and I have a little bit of a cold, so that's why I'm talking like this. My voice has changed. I've reached the first milestone here while making these videos. This is the 12th video. This is the first milestone. This being a milestone because 12 is an important number spiritually. And whenever you do anything, whenever you reach 12 of something, you can't help but to be changed by it, and there will be a difference in the quality of the videos that I make from now until the next milestone, which will be number 48. Yes, so it'll be better, much better. This video's topic is going to be about light and the sun and our solar system, our position in the solar system, and something that I've been thinking about since the morning time. This is, I was thinking about this because something came to me this morning about this topic, as well as today being the new moon. So the moon is totally hidden away from our sight. I haven't really checked if that's the case, but I read somewhere that today is the new moon, and yes, I'm fairly certain it is. And also in my own body, I can feel the darkness today, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. In addition to this, I'm living in the southern hemisphere. I'm living in Australia, and this is fall time or autumn here in Australia, and we're moving into winter. Even though the weather doesn't really show it, but the lack of sunlight and lack of the energy from the sun is very much observable. So because the tilt of the earth is farther away from the sun here in the southern hemisphere, the presence of light that we get is much lower than people do again in the northern hemisphere. I was first introduced to this idea, or first made aware of this, by watching Sadhguru maybe 2 years ago. And I had noticed this before, but I didn't really know how to articulate it, or didn't really know what the cause of this was, until Sadhguru explained that in the northern hemisphere, from about halfway through wintertime to about halfway through summertime is when the light is most prevalent and active. And that's where you can absorb the most amount of light. That's when you can do spiritual practices that will aid you in the future. And after about halfway through summer and leading into fall, that's where the sun moves into the southern hemisphere, or the Earth's body's tilt. And you don't get much light in the northern hemisphere. And that's where all of your work in the previous 6 months can be made into fruits. So to put very simply, one side, or the first 6 months, is like light, and the last 6 months is darkness. So not only here in the southern hemisphere is it the opposite of what it is in the northern hemisphere right now. This is the darker period because, again, the lack of sunlight. But today also is the new moon, and that also has an effect on your system. And I can very much feel it. It's very my ability to access, let's say, the space or the darkness or the is much easier. This brings me to my next point, is that just now I researched again the topic of the Kali Yugas, or the Yugas, or the different stages that our solar system travels in relation to the galaxy. I first came in contact with this idea many years ago, and I didn't really want to believe it because it was so kind of negative or unfavorable to our living circumstances here on Earth. And then I came in contact with it again maybe a year ago, and I listened to Sadhguru speak about it, and it made me feel, it reassured me. And now again, today I did some research and thought about it myself, and I can share with you some ideas that I've gathered so far. So just like our planet circulates the sun, all the planets in our solar system circulate the sun, our solar system here is also circulating a gigantic cluster of stars in the center of our galaxy. So just like we have a sun here and all the planets are rotating around that, all of the solar systems in our galaxy are rotating around a gigantic mass of stars somewhere in the center of our galaxy. And the closer, just like in the micro kind of example of our Earth, just the tilt of the body of the Earth doesn't allow sunlight to enter into the northern hemisphere as much as it does in the south. That has a significant impact on the human consciousness and well-being, and it can be felt. Similarly, when our solar system is very far away from this cluster of stars, that's like the Dark Ages, and that lasts for thousands of years. It's called as the Kali Yuga in Hinduism. Which thankfully we're not in that now, at least from what I understand. And in addition to this, when our solar system is closer to this cluster of stars, that's when the golden age is. So we are currently in the second best or third best stage of this cycle. And in 2082, we are going to move into the next phase, which is the second best point in what's possible. And after 5,000 years, I believe, of that, after 5,000 years, for the next 10,000 years is the golden age. That's when our solar system is going to be the closest that it can get to this cluster of stars. And the amount of light that the human body can receive, anyone can receive, whether you are aware of it or not, is so high. The amount of light that you can receive is so high that naturally your system awakens, and your ability to use your mind is so much greater, is so much higher, and naturally, without any kind of effort or consequence, you can become spiritually awakened and intuitive and enlightened. And this makes me think of the previous times that I'm sure that civilization has been alive and active for more than 10,000 years, even though archaeologists really don't, although now I think that they have found evidence that is the case. Civilizations like Atlantis, where thousands of years ago, these civilizations flourished, and they were at the pinnacle of human evolution and light and enlightenment. And then, as the cycles of the sun and of life progress, they get destroyed. So I am making use of this time, or something that I think is a positive that comes from entering in the darker phase of life and existence, like we are currently now. We are far away. We're pretty far away from this cluster of sun or stars in the center of our galaxy. And here, in my personal experience, I'm in the southern hemisphere, and we don't get as much sunlight. And the benefit of sunlight that it gives to the human body. I want to emphasize, or I want to clarify something, that it's not necessarily the sunlight. Like me going out and receiving sunlight onto my body isn't the same as if I was in the northern hemisphere and not receiving sunlight, because the sun's energy gives off a kind of ambiance or quality or energy that is irrelevant of the ultraviolet radiation that it's giving off. It's a kind of, to not overuse this term, a spiritual energy that again isn't really available or much less or not as available here in the southern hemisphere. And in addition to this, there is a new moon. The moon is totally in its darkest phase. So I'm taking advantage of this and benefiting from, just being able to see into the darkness, which in reality, the entire universe is dark. It's a dark existence or dark universe. The amount of stars are a minuscule portion of the vast cosmos, which is mainly dark. So if you were to combine all the cluster of suns in the entire universe together, compare that to what's available, the space in the universe, it's insignificant. It's like a dust particle. So that's the reality. The universe is darkness.